I'm Dutch, and let's react to the Americans. Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Johan, and I'm a typical Dutchman. And if you're wondering, if you're planning to come over to Europe for your holidays, or maybe to live here permanently, or if you're wondering why is everything so expensive in the United States in comparison with Europe, then you're at the right place, because in this channel I take a look at and react to videos about life and living in America versus life and living in Europe. And for today, YouTube suggested to me a video that is called Antifa in America, the truth behind the mask. And I have no idea what this is. I really don't. Join.
Hello, Colin.
No, I don't need to join. What I'm gonna like, it's from Forgotten History. It's about history. Antifa. I've never heard of Antifa. No idea. The truth behind the mask. All I know is that there are masks on the ICE agents for nowadays, but what is this? I have no clue. So if you don't, then let's take a look at it together, because this is the truth behind the mask. Let's take a look. 10th Legion Pictures.
During the summer of 2020, the nation was rocked by the senseless violence, rioting, arson, assaults, and even murders committed by the domestic terrorist group.
Whoa! Oh! Oh, my car! They burned it down! Oh, wow. What? Domestic terror?
Rioting, arson, assaults, and even murders committed by the domestic terrorist group Antifa.
Oh boy. Okay, hot topic. It is a domestic terrorist group. Antifa. I've never heard about it.
Nearly 600 events occurred. All were captured on live television. Random businesses, individuals, cars, and other property, and even first responders were not spared.
Yeah, and yet, although I watch a lot of videos about the United States, I've never heard about this domestic terrorist group. I have no idea. And it's been, yeah, we over Europe, but me, I never heard about it. Okay, let's continue.
While the media tried to cover for these groups and their acts, which were openly supported by many Democrat politicians at the local, state, and even federal level. This is the truth.
Anti-fascist. It's an anti-fascist group. Okay. Anti-fascist. Okay.
What is Antifa? When and where did it originate? When did it get hijacked by common criminals, and why?
Oh, hijacked, okay.
What is their status today? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former history professor, Army and Marine Corps veteran, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History.
Oh, Forgotten History. Oh, that's why I already subscribed to the channel, because I did a couple of videos about the history of the United States, just to dive in the history so that I know what I was talking about. But okay. Forgotten History. So they don't no longer exist, Antifa? The real history. Okay.
Antifa is short for antifascistisch or anti-fascist. And
yeah, I will say it in German.
Antifa is short.
Der Ratewendung kommt. Okay.
For antifascistisch or anti-fascist, and has its
Anti-fascism, yeah.
roots in Weimar Germany during the 1920s, born as a militant response to rising fascist movements, particularly the Nazi Party.
Mm-hmm.
In 1932, the German Communist Party, or KPD, launched the Antifaschistische Aktion, a paramilitary street movement to fight the SA, or Sturmabteilung, the stormtroopers, and other right-wing paramilitary groups. Soon the movement spread all over Europe. This early Antifa was Marxist-Stalinist in its ideology and controlled by the Soviet-aligned KPD, and its goal was to eliminate political rivals on both the far right and democratic left, including Social Democrats. It was a true communist movement. After Hitler came to power,
It was a communist movement covered in the name of we are anti-fascism, but in real, okay.
he imprisoned or killed political rivals, especially the communists. In fact, despite modern myth, Dachau concentration camp was not built for Jews. It was specifically built in 1933 to hold political and social criminals, with a focus on the Antifa communists.
Yeah, it's true. But I did not know. I know that Dachau was for the opposite of Hitler, but I did not know that the antifascism, Antifa, or the anti-fascists, it was for anyone who's opposing to Hitler went to Dachau, and also the communists, of course.
After World War II and the defeat of the Axis powers, Europe's Antifa groups disbanded or simply rebranded. Anti-fascism was absorbed into mainstream democratic institutions, coming to the United States as a pro-Marxist movement.
Oh, pro-Marxist. Okay.
During the 1970s and 1980s in West Germany, radical left groups like the Baader Meinhof Gang, later rebranded as the Red Army Faction, or RAF, and Autonomen, adopted anti-fascist language and methods, but their ideology was rooted in Marxism-Leninism and anarcho-communism.
Yeah, also a communist group. Yeah, oh, it's said on the banner, communist, yeah.
Not liberal democracy. They specialized in kidnapping, robbery, and murder, such as the high-profile case of businessman Hans Martin Schleyer, who was abducted from his car in Cologne in 1977. Members of
I did not know that because in 1977 I was 7. So
his police protection and his driver were killed in a spray of machine gun fire. The terrorists justified their actions for what they called his conservative anti-communist views. In Italy, the neo-Marxist Red Brigades, the ruthless militant left-wing organization, gained notoriety in the 1970s for kidnappings, murders, and sabotage. Its self-proclaimed aim was to undermine the Italian state and pave the way for a Marxist upheaval led by a revolutionary proletariat. These anarchists were not tied to any specific state or party. They dressed in black, wore masks, and engaged in property destruction, street battles, and counter-demonstrations against neo-Nazis and any anti-communist group. Antifa arrived in the U.S. in the 1980s, growing from the punk and anarchist subcultures like Anti-Racist Action, or ARA, which started in Minnesota in 1987, primarily targeting white supremacist skinheads and KKK members. Through the 1990s and 2000s, chapters spread to major cities, often aligned with other anarchist and anti-capitalist groups. After 2016, Antifa exploded into public consciousness following the election of Donald Trump. The Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in 2017 marked a watershed moment, and Antifa was there, clashing violently with white nationalists. One counter-protester, Heather Heyer, was killed by 20-year-old James Alex Field Jr., who struck her with his car.
with his car.
Trump repeatedly condemned Antifa, labeling it a domestic terror.
Consideration is being given to declaring Antifa the gutless radical left whack left whack jobs who go around hitting only non-fighters people over the head with baseball bats, a major of terror. Okay, along with MS-13 and others.
terror group, although Barack Obama holdovers in the FBI and Department of Justice never formally did. The political left, including the mainstream media outlets, refused to label Antifa as a criminal or domestic terror organization. This was despite the billions of dollars in property damage, physical harm, and loss of life, while they continued to claim that far-right groups were committing the major crimes. And
they go into the bank, not to Starbucks, so they didn't need a coffee.
here's where myth and reality diverge.
Consideration being to declare yeah, that's what I saw right away. Okay.
Antifa was never a centralized organization, as it had no national leadership, no bank accounts, no headquarters, and no official membership cards. It operates as a loose, decentralized network of activists, often organizing through affinity groups, social media, or encrypted messaging apps. There are no known formal leaders, and that's by design. In fact, Antifa prides itself on being leaderless and horizontal in structure. However, local cells may have de facto leaders, experienced activists who coordinate actions. So, while no George Soros-style general runs Antifa, there are key figures, many anonymous, who act as organizers and influencers within regional scenes. However, Soros and other left-wing Democrat persons and groups have financially supported Antifa and BLM. See our video on George Soros. Antifa's ideology is not monolithic.
Good night, right pride. So yeah, but if this is Marxism and communism, if the ideology is communism, yeah, okay, they fight fascism to favor communism, but they also should then, by ideology, fight Democrats. So why are the Democrats supporting communists to fight fascism?
Despite being Marxist in ideology, and it varies by cell or region. But common threads include their stated opposition to racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, conservative thought, capitalism, private property ownership, and what they call anti-state sentiments. They are also active in disrupting.
Okay, anti-state sentiments. So they are pro-state. More control to the government. Yeah, communism. Not to confuse with socialism, what we have over here in the Netherlands and in Europe. Let me be clear. we also give the state, our government, a lot of power to do stuff, but only as we, the people, agree with it. It's not one man deciding what's happening. No, it's so it's a slight difference. Yeah.
Or denying far-right figures or anyone whom they oppose from speaking at public forums. They are opposed to free speech unless they approve of the subject matter.
Okay. So, yeah, okay. No free speech, but you can have free speech, but only if we agree with what you have to say. That's no free speech.
Their pastimes include physical confrontation, vandalism, sabotage, intimidation, doxing those they claim are fascist and white nationalist, or just anyone who opposes their viewpoints, organizing counter-demonstrations, arson, and even murder. Antifa supporters explain their desire to eradicate free speech because opposition isn't defeated in debate, it must be confronted. What Antifa supporters and members seem to not understand.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, do not talk. Smash them in the head. You're not agreeing with me? Too bad. Pop.
Stand is that Antifa's destructive forces are undermining their own hypocritical narrative.
Yeah.
The property damage they inflicted in 2020 harmed more people of color and minorities, whom they claim to represent, than anyone else. They destroyed businesses, even entire cities. Businesses left because of the violence, the inability to afford or even get insurance, lack of proactive police services, and local Democrat officials allowing the violence to spread, standing down their local law enforcement departments. Prominent Democrats, as well as liberal local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies and political figures, called Antifa a movement rather than a terrorist group or even a criminal group. But then they
Okay, then they are protected by the Democrats. That's not good. That's not good for your reputation. Being a Democrat and then calling it, yeah, freedom of speech, even hate speech in America, and freedom of expression. So, democratically seeing, they are not terrorists, but because they have the right to do so. Only the way that they do it is terrorists are terrorists. Terrorists are terrorists because they bring terror to the general public. Fear in general.
They also falsely claimed that right-wing extremist groups posed a far greater domestic
What is this cyclist doing?
terror threat. This is an amazing position to take, given that no self-identified right-wing groups instigated any of the 576 riots from coast to coast. In fact, all of these crimes occurred in politically liberal Democrat cities and states. In essence, Antifa and BLM both destroyed their own people and their livelihoods by burning and looting stores and attacking random people. The Antifa website, www.joinantifa.org, does operate as a recruiting tool. Recently, Antifa has resurfaced and was active with several months of violent left-wing anti-ICE rhetoric. Antifa, like all Marxist-oriented terror groups, wants to overthrow and overhaul the U.S. government, eliminate private property, remove all political authority, and establish their own version of government control, censor all speech they disagree with, and in essence, establish a one-party system where they are in control, all pursued through violent action. Their recent history speaks for itself. In June 2016, for example, Antifa and other protesters confronted a neo-Nazi rally in Sacramento, California, with at least 5 people stabbed. In February, March, and April 2017, Antifa members attacked alt-right demonstrators at the University of California, Berkeley, using bricks, pipes, hammers, and homemade incendiary devices. There were very few arrests and no prosecutions. In July 2019, William Vance Bronson, a self-proclaimed Antifa agitator, attempted to bomb the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention facility in Tacoma, Washington, using a propane tank, but he was killed by police.
Okay.
Their justification for the violence by Antifa was their response to the controversial death of George Floyd. As a result of Floyd's death, protests initially erupted in over 140 U.S. cities. While the vast majority of protesters were at first peaceful, some violence and pillaging occurred. In New York City,
always, anywhere in the world, if rioters get the opportunity to do some pillaging, they do, no matter what.
For example, looters tore off the plywood that covered Macy's iconic store in Herald Square on 34th Street, smashed windows, and stole whatever items they could grab before police chased them away. John Miller, the Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism at the New York Police Department, warned that a small fringe network of extremists organized violence in New York City. He stated, "Before the protests began, organizers of certain anarchist groups set out to raise bail money, and people who would be responsible to be raising bail money. They set out to recruit medics and medical teams with gear to deploy in anticipation of violent interactions with police.
Huh. Okay, bail money and medics, just in case.
They prepared to commit property damage and directed people who were following them that this should be done selectively and only in wealthier areas or at high-end stores run by corporate entities. Others ransacked a nearby Nike store after shattering windows and walking off with armloads of athletic shirts, jeans, jackets, and sweatpants. In other cities, from Raleigh, North Carolina to San Francisco, California, a small minority of individuals burned cars, attacked police officers, and also looted businesses. In response, some U.S. officials fingered Antifa as the main culprits. Liberal Antifa defenders and even the media claimed there was no evidence, despite many Antifa members self-identifying on the news broadcasts. The cover-up was intense, but getting harder to justify, despite leading Democrats like Senator and later presidential candidate Kamala Harris creating a bail fund, putting these violent offenders back on the street.
Ooh, that didn't do good. Oh, man. Yeah. Talking about killing your own progress of becoming a president of the United States. But Trump did the same after he was president and clearing all of the January 6th rioters also free. So we can blame Kamala, but Trump did the same, only for the opposite party.
Harris publicly admitted to the bail fund, which resulted in more crimes, damage to property, and even led to the murder of retired St. Louis Police Captain Michael Dorn. In addition, numerous local and state prosecutors, funded by George Soros, refrained from charging these rioters with serious offenses post-arrest. And the mainstream liberal media and liberal DAs, admittedly funded by Soros, never reported these major crimes. Instead, they charged low-level offenses and allowed them to return to the streets and continue inflicting damage. Another prime example was
Okay, that's strange.
Portland, Oregon, which saw massive destruction, including arson, looting, and violence, all lasting for 100 consecutive nights. The violence
100 consecutive nights? 3 months?
resulted in the shooting murder of President Donald Trump supporter Aaron J. Danielson, 39 years old, by suspect Michael Forrest Reinhold, a self-described anti-fascist. Reinhold
That's murder. No matter what party you belong to, when you shoot somebody, it's murder.
was later killed in a shootout with police when they arrived to arrest him. The protesters in most cases demanded city officials slash police budgets and reallocate that money to black residents and businesses and create social workers to deal with crimes. They made these demands while burning down and looting many black businesses and establishments that had black employees, punctured police car tires with spikes, hurled Molotov cocktails into police and burned cars, shined lasers in officers' eyes, and pelted them with rocks and frozen water bottles.
This has nothing to do anymore with communism and having to find a new way into the government or to reshape the government and the way that politics has been done. This is pure, I don't know, rage, pure aggression against anyone and everybody.
On May 31, 2020, President Trump tweeted that he intended to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization, and Attorney General William Barr similarly remarked that the violence instigated and carried out by Antifa and other similar groups in connection with the rioting is domestic terrorism and will be treated accordingly. Liberal Democrats were up in arms, stating that such a designation was unwarranted, forgetting the past history of other socialist terror groups who did similar in recent history. See our videos on terrorist groups such as the Ku Klux Klan, Patty Hearst and the Symbionese Liberation Army, as well as the Weather Underground. Like its predecessors, which
Yeah, is it protest or is it terrorism? I do not know. Depends on how this is formulated and how this is how this is formulated in the law.
also began with campus protests and street riots, Antifa has, over the past several years, evolved in the use of bombings, especially fire bombings, targeting police vehicles, federal buildings, police stations, pregnancy resource centers, and more recently, Tesla dealerships. And to this escalation, we can now add the planned ambush of federal officers. Antifa escalated their violence when they conducted an attempted assassination of police officers outside the Prairieland Detention Center, being used by Immigration and Customs Enforcement as a detention facility for illegal aliens. This occurred on July 4, 2025, when 11 individuals dressed in black, some equipped with body armor, ammunition, and firearms, conducted what the Department of Justice described as a planned ambush. Two of the attackers allegedly opened fire on ICE officers after their comrades initiated a disturbance to lure officers out of the building and into the line of fire by launching fireworks and spray painting anti-ICE slogans on nearby property. A police officer was shot in the neck but was expected to live. According to the criminal complaint filed by the Department of Justice, pamphlets on insurrectionary anarchism and propaganda materials, including a Resist Fascism flag, were recovered by law enforcement. There's still work that has to be done at the federal level to confront Antifa or BLM, not just under the Biden administration, which of course sometimes notoriously refused to admit that Antifa even existed. But even now, 7 months into the Trump administration, despite repeated assaults on ICE facilities and multiple efforts to dox and threaten federal agents, there has been
your car just burned. Barbecue.
ICE facilities and multiple efforts to dox and threaten federal agents, there has been no DHS bulletin warning of the threat from Antifa and affiliated left-wing extremists, despite the high likelihood that such activities will continue. The federal government under the Biden administration remained largely incapable of even saying the word Antifa. New York Democrat Representative Jerry Nadler was one of those prominent Democrats who gave Antifa cover, and he was captured on newsfeed calling their organization and violent actions in Portland, Oregon in 2020, quote, a myth created by Washington. He lied and he knew it.
Yeah.
This was stated by Nadler despite Antifa's open self-identification and declarations, newsfeed videos, and open support by prominent Democrats such as Kamala Harris, Maxine Waters, and Nancy Pelosi, among many others publicly supporting Antifa's actions and self-proclaimed status. How will...
Okay, this adds an extra layer to the complexity of the politics in the United States. How can they allow this?
Will the current administration handle Antifa in the future? We will have to wait and find out. Thank you for watching this episode of Forgotten History.
Forgotten history? This is not history. This is current day. Wow. Yeah. Now, sorry guys, I did not know that this is actually something that happens in the United States as being tolerated. I know protests are going on, and a lot of them are, some of them, not a lot of them, some of them getting violent. We saw that in Los Angeles when the ICE raids get a bit out of hand, and then we had some people who actually were protesting in peace, And on the other hand, there were people who were protesting with violence and throwing smoke grenades and fireworks. But those are arrested, bring in front of a judge, and be fined or whatever. But I did not know that there is an organization like this, and I believe they call it BLM, that is allowed to do this under the umbrella protection of some prominent Democrats. Wow. Good. Good to know. And if you like this video and my reaction to it, then maybe you should like the video. And if you want to see more of my content, then it will be good to start with this one over here. And otherwise, it would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button so we can get up to our first 1,000 subscribers. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.